All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning, this afternoon's call, this evening's call, depending on where you are. My name is Dan Zacharias. I handle the media relations for Ford on the NASCAR circuit. And as many of you saw, the reason you're here is there was an announcement yesterday that Jenson will be driving 3 races on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit this year in the number 15 Ford Mustang for Rick Ware Racing. Those will be at COTA, Indianapolis Road Course, and then the Chicago Street Course. So Jenson, welcome to the call. Appreciate you joining us here this morning. I know it's been a busy media day or two for you here, but appreciate you joining us here for a few minutes.
No worries. Good to be here. Sorry, my voice has gone a little bit. I'm not used to this much talking.
That's all right. We'll try to be easy on you here today. If you've got a question for Jenson through the Zoom platform, if you want to raise your hand, I'll get to as many questions as we can. Maybe the best way to do this is if we can just start by asking one question so we can get to as many as we can. And then if we've got a few minutes after the fact, we'll kind of circle back around for follow-up. So with that being said, let's kick it off with the birthday girl, Holly Kane. Holly, if you'd like to kick us off, go ahead. We've got Jenson for about 30 minutes, so we'll go till about the bottom of the hour. So Holly, kick us off. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. And Jenson, I guess, kind of perhaps an obvious question, but has participating in a NASCAR race or a stock car race been something that maybe you had wanted to do for a very long time, but just never had the opportunity? And certainly the Garage 56 project has put you in a stock car, so you've got a little bit of that now, but just maybe how long this is something you've wanted to do it, or what compelled you?
Well, for a very long time, I've watched NASCAR, a couple of decades. And I have to say, growing up in the UK, we had 4 channels on TV back then, back in the late 80s. And we didn't get any real sport outside of European sport. So you're going to like this. So it was actually Days of Thunder that first of all brought me to NASCAR, because it's the first time I got to see any NASCAR. I mean, it was a movie, so as an 8-year-old, I thought it was insane. I thought it was amazing, worlds away from European motorsport. But that kind of got me in the door of liking NASCAR, and I used to watch it with my old man. And yeah, it's so different to what I'm used to, and I think that's probably what stopped me asking the question whether I'd be able to race in NASCAR, because it's so different to anything I've driven before. And also back then it was more ovals. There weren't really any street courses, so that didn't excite me so much because it's another skill set altogether. But now there are more road courses. It's definitely more enticing, and also I think I would be more competitive. I watch the races and I see the new guys coming in that have experience in road course racing, and they don't find it easy. It's very difficult, but I think that's part of the challenge and why I'm excited about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly. Let's go to Charles Bradley. Good morning, Charles.
Hey, good morning, Dan. Jenson, congrats on the deal. Great to see you taking on the challenge. I'm sure you're going to love it. Just picking up on what you said there about watching Days of Thunder with your dad, age 9, and what you said on Race Hub last night. You said you'd love to try a NASCAR oval race one day, but you'd need that fresh skill set to do so. But I mean, what would you feel like if you were able to go race in a Daytona 500 one day, be on that grid, stood with a wife and kids while the anthem plays? Is that kind of a dream that's maybe a little bit more feasible now with Mobile and Tony and Rick sort of behind that dream?
It is. For me, it's not just driving the racing car. A racing car is a racing car, and it's very different to what I'm used to. But you get to grips with it over time. It's the racing that's a lot more difficult. It's the having cars all around you, having a spotter telling you who's where, and a lot of the time you're like stuck in the middle and you can't really do much, and it's just a very different type of racing, and that's the bit I think would take a while. I could go and drive on an oval, and I'm sure it would take me time, but I would get to grips with it, especially a circuit like Daytona where it's open, it's flat the whole way around. But it's when you put other cars into the equation and the drafting and the pushing and it's a lot to learn, but doing that in the Cup Series probably isn't the best way for me. Jumping in a Cup car at Daytona, I think it might be better to do it in a lower category first and get a bit of experience that way.
Thank you.
But you're right. Sorry, you're right. The atmosphere is great, and that's what I really love about NASCAR, about all the different series in NASCAR, but especially Cup Series. It's the family atmosphere that really got me. And speaking to Jimmy Johnson, he says my kids come along and they're playing with everyone else's kids, and it's that thing that that part of it that really adds to the interest for me.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you, Charles. Let's go to Ian Parks. Hello, Ian. Welcome.
Thanks very much. Hey, Jenson. How's
Hello,
things?
mate.
Apart from the voice.
I'm very good, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much. Jenson, I was just wondering why these 3 races in particular. Is there anything that drew to these 3? Is it just a matter of scheduling, given your other commitments? And is this a dip in the toe of the water? Do you feel it could lead to something a bit more, maybe going into next season or whenever?
I mean, there's always a possibility, I guess, but it's all down to performance, isn't it? It doesn't matter what I've done previously. I mean, these 3 races, the reason why I've got the drive is because of what I've done previously and my relationship with Mobil 1. But if they don't go well, no, it's not going to go well for 2024 in terms of getting a drive or, for a full season. So, yeah, I mean, if I like the championship, if I like the car, if I think it's fun and enjoyable and I can be competitive, there's always that possibility. But as I said, it's a lot of learning in a very different way than I'm used to. The 3 circuits that we've chosen work out really well because COTA I've driven at before, so I'm not just learning the car, because I don't know if you know, but you don't actually get any practice before the race weekend. Now you get 50 minutes at the race weekend. I thought it was 15, so that's a bit better. And then the second one, Chicago. No one's driven in Chicago on a street course. Driving one of these around a street course, I mean, it sounds nuts, but it's the same for all of us. And then Indy, it's different to the F1 track I drove there, but it has some of the same corners. The reason why I can't do Watkins Glen, which is the following weekend, is because we're only using 1 car and they can't prep the car quick enough for the following weekend. So that's the reason why we've chosen those 3, and those 3 for me are the perfect trio.
Thank you, Ian. Let's go to Jeff Gluck. Hey, Jeff.
Morning, Jenson. In the press release, you were talking about how in the last 10 years, really, you feel like the respect level for NASCAR has increased internationally. Is there anything specific that you feel has brought that level up in regards to how people feel about NASCAR overseas?
I have to say that it's probably, I've looked at NASCAR before as being super cool to watch, on the ovals, short course, long course ovals, and it's very cool, but I can't really relate to it because it's so different. So I think because we have more road courses now, and you see the cars on road courses and they look a handful, but the racing is amazing. It's proper cool to watch. And I think sort of like 10, 15 years ago, you had a few guys that were good on the road courses. A lot of them hadn't raced road courses. So it'd be like me jumping into the Daytona 500 on an oval. It's very different. So, I think that's changed over time. And now you look at the grid in a Cup Series, and they're all super talented on ovals and on road courses. And I think that's added to the excitement for people watching. And then we see drivers like Kimi jump in, like he did last year. Joey Hand jumped in last year. And you see that it is really competitive, and that also makes you think, oh, that's cool. And then you get even more excitement and interest in the sport because there is such a high level of talent there.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Let's go to Mr. Medlin. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Hello, Jenson. Good morning, and congrats on the drive. You mentioned Kimi there. You mentioned Jimmy as well. Obviously, you worked with Jimmy and Jordan, who'll be racing at COTA on the Garage 56 project. So I just wondered, who are the guys you've lent on the most, and how much leaning on other people are you doing, if Kimi would let you lean on him at all, or how much are you just going to rely on your own experience?
Jimmy's been very useful. I mean, not just with this, but with my Garage 56 project. He's he's driven the stock cars his whole life. So we all know how difficult it is to shift from an open wheel high downforce car to a stock car and vice versa. And I think Jimmy showed that the last couple of years. It's tough. And I think he did a bloody good job, but it just shows how difficult it is and how different it is. But he's been really helpful. I've also spent a lot of time with yesterday with the team, getting to grips with the feeling of the car in terms of where I'm sat. That's such an important thing for me. I can't be sat up straight with a steering wheel here on my lap. I need to be sat back a bit more like a single seater. And we found a position that works for me. And if I have that, I'll have a lot more feeling through the car and be able to get to grips with it quicker. But yeah, I'd say biggest point of contact over the last 4 or 5 months has been Jimmy, and it's because we've worked together quite a bit on Garage 56, which is obviously very different to a cup car. It's kind of like 8 seconds quicker a lap. But we've done 3 tests already, and we've been together for all 3 of them. So yeah, I think Jimmy's been the best. And I said to him when I had this opportunity, I was like, "What do you think? Should I do it?" He said, "Mate, you definitely have to do it." He said, "You'll have a blast." I was like, "Right, I'm done. I'm in." So if Jimmy thinks it's going to be fun, it's going to be fun.
All right, let's move on to Kevin Little. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Jenson. I work for the newspaper here in Austin, in Central Texas. You've obviously been here a bunch of times before to COTA and Austin, and I want to get your thoughts on the circuit itself and the Austin market too.
Well, I've raced at COTA quite a few times in an F1 car, and everyone was saying a couple of days because I tested there in the Garage 56 car, and everyone was saying, "Oh, it's easy for you. You've driven here in an F1 car." It's like, well, it's a little different in an F1 car. You basically drive a different circuit. So for me to get to grips with a big car, a stock car, the test last week did help, even though it's a very different type of car. But I enjoy the track. It's flowing. In an F1 car, it's just awesome. You go through turn 1 and through the S's all the way down to turn 9. It's just change direction after change direction. And you put 1 foot wrong at turn 3, and that affects you all the way down to turn 9. And I think we all love that as drivers. Very like the Suzuka S's. There are some really good overtaking opportunities in an F1 car. DRS helps. In a stock car, it's very different. It's obviously a lot slower, and they're going side by side through turn 3 and turn 4, which is it's crazy. But I look forward to that. Well, we don't have door mirrors, but all that rubbing and tapping and what have you. But it's going to be an exciting experience. And I think the racing in stock car around COTA has been really good as well. I watched last year's race probably 20 times now to get an understanding of where they're putting the car, the different styles of driving, who's more aggressive than others. So yeah, the race last year was really good fun to watch. So I look forward to the action.
Thank you, Kevin.
And the city's fun. Lots of good restaurants. So I'm actually bringing the family, my wife and 2 kids. So that should be great.
That'd be fun. All right, let's go to Nate Ryan from NBC Sports. Go ahead, Nate.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, Jenson, I was among those who talked to you the day that Garage 56 was announced at the Rolex 24, the driver lineup. And you told us at that point that you had not talked to anyone really about the possibility of cup races, that you wanted to do them, but you hadn't talked to anybody yet. So I'm just wondering, what changed there? Did the Garage 56 announcement kind of spur this out of nowhere? Was it bubbling up and it kind of pushed it over the goal line? If you could just kind of give us the origins there of how this deal all came together. And also, if I just get you to touch really briefly, in addition, on being in this race with Kimi and the kind of the stars aligning to make that happen.
Yeah, well, I hadn't talked to a team about racing in NASCAR yet. And that was correct, but I had spoken to Mobil 1 last year. But I spoke to Mark Humphreys from Mobile One in the F1 paddock. Must have been sort of September time. And I said to him, I would love to get in a NASCAR. And I was thinking more Truck Series, Xfinity Series. And he's like, really? He said, let me make a few calls. And then we had lots of texts, and he's like, we might be able to make this happen, And I was like, awesome. And then it was Abu Dhabi, last F1 race of the season, when we properly talked, and he said, we can do this. And he said, we want to do more than one race, because it's better for us. And he said it will also be better for you, I think. So we discussed, and we didn't have a team to talk to yet, and that happened this year. We talked to Stewart-Haas and Rick Ware Racing, and tried to work out how it could work, and whether it would work, whether we could get the car in time and build the car for the races. So it's all been very quick how it's all turned around, and I'm a Cup Series driver, so it's been a fun couple of months, but it's been very tight to getting the car ready for Austin.
All right, let's move on to Gerard Boss. Gerard, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Jenson, congrats on the drive. A small question about F1, if I may. The season has started. Red Bull was dominant in the race. What's your opinion on how the F1 season will evolve, even though it's only one race? And how many races could Max Verstappen win, you think?
I watched the race, and the Red Bulls were out in front, and it looked like a relatively easy race, especially for Max. But I have to say, forgetting who won the race, it was a great race. In terms of, it was too easy for Max. Yes, it was. But the race itself was great. I loved the action. There was so much action. To see two multiple world champions going at it, Lewis and Fernando, it was pretty special. I know that a lot of drivers have said, well, it's going to be an easy championship for Red Bull and Max. But how can you say that? We've only tested at one track. We've only raced at one track. And we all know that Bahrain is very unique in the way that the cars work there. It's a heavy braking traction circuit. It's not so much about high speed. So we can't say that. I think we'll understand a bit more after Saudi, which is more of a fast flowing track. And also when we get to sort of the European races. So no, it's not a walk in the park for Red Bull and Max. It's a great start to this season and very different to what they had last year. But I still think we're going to have some very, very close fights. And I don't think it's going to be a straightforward win for Red Bull and Max. But I loved the first race. I thought it was action packed, and that's what I look for. I look for great racing and great fights, and two greats like Lewis and Fernando going at it was very special.
Thank you.
Right, I want to get to Tim Horney because he's got a follow-up question. He wants to confirm something. So Tim, go ahead if you want to ask your initial question, and then with your follow-up.
Oh, good. I've been called a lot of things. Horney is a new one.
Well, being a Zacharias, I can relate. I get all kinds of things with Zacharias, so I apologize.
No, all good, all good. Hey, Jenson. So actually, it was a few years ago, I did an interview with you, and you were doing a lot of triathlon at the time. Just curious to know if you're still doing that, and in terms of your physical preparation for the Cup car, what are you doing? Are you doing anything different? Are you still doing triathlon?
Good question. I'm doing a lot less. I've got 2 kids now, so it's, being out on the bike for 5 hours is a no-no. But I do train a lot, but it's very different training. So no triathlon training. I do run. Most of my cardio is running, but I do a lot more weightlifting, just because I'm in my 40s now. And you lose muscle mass. So weight training is something I couldn't do in F1. So I can do that now, which is great. And I do a lot of boxing, which is what I use for reactions, as well as the Batak board. Got a Guinness World Record now on that. But it's really important for me, to keep my fitness good. For most of my life, I've trained hard in F1. But I've been very limited in what I can do. So now I can do the actual stuff that I think is right for my body and what is right for my age, and keeping fit and keeping young. So I'm in a good place. I don't think it'll be too physical, the car. I know the races are long, but it's more of the heat issue that you've got to get used to, heat soaking, if you like. So doing a lot of hot training, and I live in California, so it's not too hard to do that.
Thanks very much, Jenson. Appreciate it.
Tim, did you need to confirm his test, the COTA
Oh,
test that you asked?
Yeah,
me?
just wanted to confirm the like, did you ran a test at COTA or no with the Cup car?
No, in the
Okay.
Garage 56 car.
Got it.
No,
Thank
they
you.
definitely wouldn't let me do that.
Okay.
All right, let's go to Lewis Frank. You've been patiently waiting. Lewis, go ahead, ask your question.
Good afternoon, Jensen. I cover motorsports for Reuters here, kind of the American Alan Baldwin. You mentioned that, we've got Raikkonen, but don't forget last year, Jacques Villeneuve finished the Daytona 500 in a Ford, Dan. The fact that there have been in recent days 3 former F1 drivers, do you think that makes it more appealing for other Formula One drivers to come try NASCAR?
Yeah, I think so. And as I said, it felt so far removed from us as youngsters. But I think I don't want to be negative about Formula One, because it is an amazing sport, and I'm an F1 world champ, so I spent most of my life there. But you're so focused, and your family doesn't come to the races because your teams don't really want them to be there, because they know that your focus is so important, and it's very tough, because it's your life. It is everything. Everything you do is for Formula One, and I did it for 17 years. And you're in this world that you forget about everything else. It's all that matters is making you a better racing driver and a better Formula One driver. So when you step outside that, for me, it's exciting to do other things. And with NASCAR, it's a much more relaxed atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, the racing is very serious, and these are some of the best drivers in the world. But the atmosphere outside the car, the atmosphere at the track, it's a lot more relaxed. It's more of a family-based category. So I think that's why we like it, because it's trying something different. We've done something the same for so many years. So to go and try something different is exciting. Yeah, you're right. Jacques raced last year. Kimi did a race last year. And everyone seems to enjoy it. And I think it's also because we love another challenge. It's trying something different. We're not just F1 drivers, we're racing drivers. And I also live in the States, so it definitely helps with that.
Thanks. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to Kelly Crandall, racer. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Good morning, Jensen. You said there about testing the Garage 56 car. I would assume, obviously, given NASCAR's rules, that's probably going to be the only time you're going to be able to have in the car to get ready for COTA. So what else will you be doing over this next week or so to kind of just prepare yourself for that race? I know you said you've watched a video of last year's event, but anything else on the agenda that you really want to get done before you get to the track?
Yeah, it is tricky. There is a generic car that NASCAR have for newbies, which Kimi drove last year, Mike Rockenfeller drove last year, but I don't think it's available, which is a shame, because obviously it would be on a very different type of track. The seating position would also not be what I would want, but it's to get used to the shifting, because it's a sequential gearbox, which I haven't ever raced. And you have to be very aggressive with everything. The same with the throttle blip. So it's those little technical things that I would love to do if I can before I go racing, because when you get 50 minutes of practice, you want to be doing setup work and trying to get the car set up around you. So that would be good. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I have simulated time set up next week, which is great. And I've already done my seat fit, so I'm comfortable in the car. So yeah, it's simulator time, spending time with the team, getting an understanding of brake traces, throttle traces, lines, and all of the data that they have, because there is a lot of data. It's obviously less than F1 because they're not allowed to have as more than they have. But there's still a lot of data there for me to look at and learn from before I step out onto the track in COTA.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go to Jim Utter, motorsport.com. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good.
Hey, Johnson. I just wanted to ask you, since your official announcement to the Garage 56 program, you guys seem to have been undergoing an extensive testing schedule. I just wondered if you could just kind of summarize what your experience has been like since you've gotten inside that car. And one of the things that Jimmy Johnson had said at the beginning of the program was that he thought it was a way to kind of expose Europeans to a little taste of NASCAR at Le Mans, and he thought that they would like what they saw. And I just wondered what your impression might be.
Yeah, they definitely will like what they see. You know, it does look like a cup car with a few winglets on it, but you know, we haven't put a rear wing on the car because we don't want it to look different to a cup car. You know, the diffuser is the same as a cup car. There's no difference. So it does look like a cup car, but I have to say it's not the same performance as the cup car. You know, it's got a lot more power. It's a lot lighter, a lot more downforce. I think it's got 4 times more downforce. And around you know, a normal track, it's 8 to 10 seconds a lap quicker. So it is faster. But I think in terms of the way it looks and the way it sounds, I mean, it's the sound. You know, cup cars sound insane. It's just such a wonderful sound from that V8. And I think that's what's going to blow everyone away. And I think that's what I'm most excited about. You know, it's going to be a fan favorite, definitely at Le Mans. And it will bring a lot more interest to NASCAR. Like I'm sure Kimi Racing and myself racing and Jordan Taylor Racing, because it brings another crowd and another fan base to the sport. So these are all great things for NASCAR, and I really do hope that it keeps improving the fan base, because it is a pretty special spectacle.
Have you felt like the testing has gone well so far?
It has. I mean, you always have setbacks, you know, your endurance testing, but we did a 24-hour test in Sebring and we had one issue, but apart from that, everything ran very smoothly. You know, a stock car, a cup car, they're built very strong. You know, I was amazed at how reliable the car was over 24 hours. So it's, you know, that's a big challenge for everyone involved. And, you know, to see that the car can do 24 hours with one issue is very impressive. And I think it really shows the strength of a stock car, of a cup car, and what these guys are doing. They understand what they need to do to make it reliable for 4 hours, but I bet they didn't expect it would last 24.
Thank you very much.
All right, we've got time for one more. So Will Wood, I'll give you the final question. Apologize to those that we didn't get to, but Will, if you'll close us out, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Hi, Jenson. Formula One is a very particular kind of motorsport, obviously, and NASCAR is obviously a very particular kind of motorsport in a different way. There's obviously a lot of differences in how they go about racing. And I know you haven't actually competed yet, but from a sporting or a competition perspective, is there anything that you think Formula One could maybe look at NASCAR and maybe learn something from as it looks to try and improve itself as a sport?
Yeah, I think the great thing about F1, they are very open to changes and tickling it here and there. You know, we have the sprint races, which I think work really well. You know, not everyone's going to be happy when you change a sport that's been the same for so long, but I like that change. In NASCAR, they have the stages where I think previously you had a yellow, so everyone bunched up. I'm not sure if that's still the case on road courses. I don't want to jump the gun on that. So they have stage points through the race. So I don't know. It could make it interesting, because it depends on when you pit. For tires, if you get points at a certain point through the race, if it's lap 20, lap 40, and the end of the race, it might change strategies around. Who knows? I don't know if it would work. Apart from that, you know, the pit stops are obviously very different. They're brave guys that work in NASCAR, I have to say. We've done quite a few pit stops for Le Mans, and it's a completely different crew that do the pit stops. In F1, it's the mechanics that do the pit stops, and they're stood there waiting for the car to come in, and it's insane how quickly they can do it. But in NASCAR, the guys have got to run around the car, jack it up on one side, change the wheel, then run around the other side, jack it up. And the guy with the fuel is on, and the driver just goes when the tires are finished. So the guy on the fuel gets dragged with the car as it pulls away. So I mean, it's aggressive, just like the racing on track. It's aggressive, but that's what makes it exciting, I think. But I don't think that's right for Formula One. But I mean, that's just the differences of NASCAR and Formula One. But I think F1's in a great place, and I enjoy the racing. The dream is that F1's lighter, the cars are lighter. That's always the dream, because I think as drivers we like lightweight cars. He says as he's about to race a stock car. But no, I'm happy with where F1 is. As long as we're ready to tickle things here and there, if we think it's necessary, and try it and not be afraid. I think F1's in a great place.
Well, Jenson, we appreciate you taking the time. I know it's busy time, but welcome to the sport. Glad to have you as part of our world here, and we'll look forward to seeing you behind the wheel of that Mustang at COTA. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
Thanks for
Jenson.
coming.